The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 years, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists. Victoria Jones from Satoshi's Page.
Hello, hello, everyone.
Ben Ark from LN Bits.
Evening all.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue one, the price of Bitcoin is up 2.13% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 78,180, a high of 78,941, and a low of $76,200. That's $1 for 1,279 Satoshis. Volume was at 1,214 Bitcoins, changing hands. That means that the price of Bitcoin was up for April, closing up 12% as Strategy's MSTR posts its first positive month since July. Strategy added $4.1 billion in Bitcoin, but on-chain data suggests gains may be speculative. Victoria Jones, the price is finally up in Victoria in April. I think the ball had it. I think the ball is the best predictor ever. Victoria, what do you think about the price up 12% finally?
Well, your own AI tool tells you that the ball isn't the best predictor ever, but I'll let it go. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think the stock markets have had a good rebound lately after all the drama of war breaking out in Iran. And in the absence of, a lot of these, well, most of Wall Street not knowing where to put its money, I think it's shoved some into the stock market. And at the moment, sadly, it appears that Wall Street and professional investors are taking over Bitcoin more and more. If you actually read the article, you can see that underneath it all, the volumes aren't really supporting that rally. I think the ground, the I think the genuine Bitcoiners, there are some concerns, obviously, with the software, like we've mentioned before, with the Knots versus core debate. I think it's very Wall Street driven now, sadly. I think there are many, genuine Bitcoiners who understand what's going on, who are watching very carefully what's happening. That's certainly the case in my perspective. And of course, people who understand Bitcoin on the surface, just as something that often goes up in value, are often getting excited about it. But it does make me sad, the lack of depth of thinking that's now going into Bitcoin that we used to have before. I'd say there is a bit of a rally that's being fostered by some exuberance. Let's see how long it lasts.
It does seem like our Wall Street friends have joined us, and I don't know that they'll be with us forever. Again, I've been telling people how great it is that you can occasionally cash out your Bitcoin without that too much trouble in your bank account. I don't know how long that's going to last. I don't know how long we're going to have these conferences full of Wall Street people. But for now, it's great. Let's enjoy it. Although some people do think we're totally captured. But again, the price is up, so everything's fine. Ben Ark, the price up 12% in April. Everything's fine now.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, their story arc when it comes to learning about Bitcoin, what it does, begins with getting some skin in the game, buying some Bitcoin. And then they learn a little bit about the history, and that's very interesting subjects. They spend a bit more time on that. And then as time wears on, they look into the actual value proposition, what it was intended to do, the people who are working on it, the projects which are being built in it. And then they get really bullish, and then they turn into kind of proper Bitcoiners, and they want to hodl their Bitcoin. They want to take self-custody of their Bitcoin. And I can imagine that a lot of these mechanisms for acquiring Bitcoin, such as strategy, will foster some of that in some of its investors, because inevitably, with some skin in the game, they're going to start taking an interest in Bitcoin. So I don't necessarily, I'm not sure it's necessarily a bad thing. It's very cringy when you see these people popping up at Bitcoin conferences and you think, how did we get here? Like really, like the promise, the thing which Bitcoin was, 8 years ago or whatever, or 10 years ago, like how are we at this point now? where the FBI director is speaking at a conference, a Bitcoin conference about Bitcoin. And then if you look at some of the talks which happened at, the Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas, which has just happened this week, they clearly, a lot of the people on the stage didn't really know what they were talking about, but over time they will learn. And I think that's true of all the people who, it's just learning about Bitcoin by osmosis, it's in the ether. It's so yeah, it plants those little seeds, and then people, when they start at the computer and they've Googled everything and they've watched all the TikTok videos, and they're like, oh, maybe I'll figure out what this Bitcoin thing is people were talking about, and they start Googling. So that will attract people to Bitcoin. It's still a speculative asset, and it's treated as a speculative asset by Wall Street and by the majority of people who are trading the thing. But over time, I believe that some of them, they sink below the surface of the trade volume and settle on the sea floor as bedrock, which is our hodler bedrock, which is actually, I think, where the value is the hodler bedrock. The people who appreciate Bitcoin's value for what it is, they won't hold on to it themselves, take self-custody, and then also just encourage, people to build and all the good things we like about Bitcoin.
I don't know, Ben. I think there's a little bit of a postmodern, ironic, humorous success in having people on the stage who don't know what they're talking about and don't know what Bitcoin is and couldn't explain the basics to you. I think that's part of success. But we're going to talk more about the conference later. For now, we're going to continue on with the price, and with the exit question, predicting against the magic 8-ball, the source of all truth. Victoria Jones, will the price of Bitcoin go up or down this time next week?
Well, it seems to have had a bit of an energetic pump today. So given that might need to rebalance out, I'm going to say lower.
Ben Ark, higher or lower?
I think we're going to have something of a rally in the markets. It's the sun's out. King Charlie's managed to get Trump to calm down a little bit. I think we're going to surf the back of that for a while, or surf that wave for a while. And I think the markets are going to respond favorably to the perceived peace and things finally starting to calm down in the world. So let's hope.
I love this new multi-speaker view. I can make it look like around the horn. Here it is. Will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week? See the ball, very hard to read. It's very dark. And it says, buy a new 8-ball that's easier to read. I think it says ask again later, but again, we're going to work on this. I think DJ Booth says we have a World Crypto Network 8-ball. I'll try to load that for next week because this one's falling apart, but ask again later. The ball has punted. Moving on to issue 2, Eric Trump. Just in time for the Bitcoin conference, Forbes released a huge article attacking Eric Trump, saying how Trump got rich from Bitcoin while losing investors a fortune. The president's second son pitches his Bitcoin company as a money printing machine. It's actually an arbitrage vehicle that preys on MAGA-minded investors. According to the article, the president's son demanded that the company, which has 2 employees, adding Trump as a third, rename itself to American Bitcoin. Once naming itself American Bitcoin, it managed to work out a scheme where every Bitcoin they mined, they lose $13,000. Meanwhile, they're selling lots of stock on the stock exchange, and they use the stock to buy more Bitcoin. Ben Ark, what do you think about the president's son and the attack piece in Forbes, which was well timed for the conference?
Yeah, I mean, so he's made 90 million, and I think the fund has lost 500 million for the investors. And you kind of hope that your money's safe with the president's son's company, I guess. I don't know. It's all part of the MAGA thing. Like they kind of voting with their investment, I think. I suppose they see the success of strategy and lots of these treasury type companies or companies which just buy Bitcoin and then do stuff with Bitcoin and like he said to create these money printing machines. A lot of them have done very well. So I guess he timed it right on that front, and launching American Bitcoin at that time. And he's just copying the format of his dad. So his dad, famously oversells things to the point where he's then looked into for tax evasion because he's claimed that he's got assets worth more than actually worth, and they've spent more money on things, and everything's bigger and bigger and bigger than it actually is. And actually, this company, which he in one of his speeches, I think he said he wanted to thank all the employees, and then actually just thanked the other employee of the company because there was literally no one else there. There's just the two of them. Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame that people get stung, but it's a great lesson in just buy Bitcoin, get a hard Trezor, get a hardware wallet, buy some Bitcoin, stick it on it, leave it there for 5 years. You're good. 10 years, even better. So it's another lesson in that for people, that they should just the whole reason Bitcoin exists is that you don't have to buy something like American Bitcoin. But I understand that all these if it gets listed on, I think it got listed on the Nasdaq or something. So I guess all these pension funds and everyone else who were just buying Nasdaq, they have that obligation then also to buy this shitcoin event, essentially. But there's a weird thing going on at the moment with investment markets, with money, with companies, and you're seeing it a lot in AI, where it's just very circulatory. So a company invests in a company, they use that money to then buy the thing from the company, and then they both just propel each other's stock price higher, which is very frothy and bubbly, and it's all going to come crashing down at some point. But in this case, it did. And if you look at the same with some of these treasury companies, the ones which sort of trying to mimic strategy like what the Naka experience, what Nakamoto has had as well, it looks like an ICO or something. It pumps up and then it just dumps and then it flatlines. And this is what has happened to American Bitcoin. So it's shitcoining in Wall Street.
It is the classic Trump mining company doesn't actually mine Bitcoin. The money is made off of the victims or the investors. It's just such a classic Trump thing. And I did hear Eric Trump speak at the Bitcoin convention, and he was talking about how great the elevators are in the Trump Hotel, how they don't have any buttons, and that they just look at everything in every corner, and they're so detailed and so great at things. And then he and his couple of guys went on to complain about the interface of Bitcoin. They said Bitcoin was too hard to use and that they couldn't get their grandmothers into Bitcoin, and that was the problem with Bitcoin. And this was just this year, 2026, just a few days ago, the major speeches. You can go check it out. Victoria Jones, what do you think about Eric Trump and American Bitcoin? That has to be the name, American.
Yeah, I think it's just another reflection of Wall Street being involved in Bitcoin, really, and it does feel rather sad. In all the hubris, the ideology is being lost, and there are people following the Trumps and their Bitcoin interests purely because they've got blinkers on over what they think Trump is and what the Trump family is, and so Bitcoin must be a good thing without really kind of delving deeper and understanding what Bitcoin really is. Because yes, Bitcoin has a good value proposition, which we understand, otherwise we wouldn't have got involved with it in the first place. But there's more to it than that. And if you're myopic just on the value that you could get from investing in Bitcoin, then there's a danger that its underlying infrastructure can be contaminated, because the problem is, Bitcoin developers still need funding. There's still a lot of work to be done with the software and in terms of rolling out the infrastructure. And the trouble is, if you have flawed motivations for that, then you're not going to get what it was that we all wanted when we supported Bitcoin in the first place. So, yeah, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. And for him to profit personally while those who invested in the company lost money, it just really reflects badly. And unfortunately, then having Bitcoin's name associated with it, doesn't really do Bitcoin any favors. I think it's terribly bad marketing. But of course, the Trumps aren't interested in that. They're interested in what works for them. Clearly, there's nothing altruistic about building a company that then loses their investors a load of money, while the person who set it up wins a load of money. And I think it's very sad that Bitcoin's name is associated with that. That's how I feel about it.
It is a new form of a predatory business where you make lots of money, your customers lose all the money. And it's not illegal like the pink slips or any of the things that they used to do with trading and bad portfolio management, things like that. It's just I don't know, it's just a bad plan to begin with. There's 3 employees. They lose money when they mine Bitcoin. They're generally just buying the Bitcoin for you. So it's really kind of just a marketing layer. Like if you like the American Bitcoin and the logo, and I've seen it all over the conference, it's an American flag. I mean, all of their marketing is red, white, and blue, the colors of America. I mean, it's the same thing over and over again. I think they'd probably put an eagle in there too, if you look closely. But I think that blends well into our next issue, very related to that issue, the Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas, where Eric Trump spoke, and he's even pictured right here with the money man on his right. The money man had trouble using Bitcoin because the interface is so confusing. And you can see a little bit of the American Bitcoin logo here on the left, and even a continuation of it here on the right, almost perfectly wrapping around. Fun photograph here from the Las Vegas Review Journal, who wrote about the conference saying, despite a constant fall or consistent fall, Bitcoin enthusiasts are alive and well, telling people to hold on. And the 3-day conference held here in Las Vegas at the Venetian Hotel. One of the key things I think to take away here from the article, there was one of the keynotes, every speech seems to be a keynote, was by the CEO of Shake and Steak and Shake. And what he said is that it's working great for them. They love Bitcoin. They don't want to pay credit card fees. He also talked about the beef tallow fries and tots, removing microwaves, so on and so forth, claiming that Bitcoin is a healthy currency that allows them to increase the healthiness of their products. This is a hamburger stand. It's not very healthy. And the article goes on to say, in the same vein, there were multiple health and wellness exhibitors at the conference. Multiple exhibitors had fitness challenges. That means people hanging from things, which is a common like carnival scam, as well as arcade punching machines. Yes, they had at least 2 or 3 of those. There was also a jock panel I'd like to talk more about later, as well as vendors selling lymphatic drainage machines, biohacking, wood-fired hot tubs. Also, these were Bitcoin miner-fired hot tubs is what I heard. Fluoride-free nano silver toothpaste. I didn't see that one. And decentralized nicotine. There was also those vibrating things you stand on. What a conference. What a couple of days. I think I've got some Twitters I can show as well. But first, let's go to the panel. What did you guys think from the outside? What did you hear about the Bitcoin conference? What was your takeaway from reading the articles? Victoria Jones, go ahead.
I didn't get a lot from reading the articles, actually, and not having been there, it's very difficult to comment. But it being Las Vegas, it all seems very glitzy and very exciting. Starship is in the comments has put an interesting comment saying that he's listened to a few of the things going on over there, and it seemed mostly empty hype. Jack's merging his businesses. Sailor is in debt. AI, financial engineering, and little software engineering. I mean, I couldn't, I didn't read the article, but that comment seems to pretty much sum it up, and is a reflection of some of the other situations that we've been witnessing. I mean, this is the problem of trying to build a business with Bitcoin while it's still in the early days. The downtrend can get you every time, and it looks like everyone's suffering from that. And of course, just in the last week, the Bank of England is warning of a financial crisis. When the banks start to warn you, then you're really in trouble, because they never normally say anything. So yeah, I mean, it looks exciting, but it's like many things, it feels like gloss on the surface when there could well be, some trouble brewing underneath.
Well, it is worth noting, like you're saying, most of the speakers at the main stages were not developers or Bitcoin companies or people working on new ideas. They were more like treasury companies like MicroStrategy, who just holds Bitcoin. Strike is a Bitcoin company. They were there. Otherwise, it was companies like Shake and Stake and American BTC. Although, shout out to the conference. I managed to get a press pass, so I was able to attend the conference for free and check it out. And shout out to the Bitcoin conference on their account as well at the Bitcoin Conf, the world's largest Bitcoin conference. It was in Las Vegas. It's going to be in Hong Kong, coming soon to Amsterdam, Mina. I don't know where that is. And then they're going to have it back in Nashville. So that sounds interesting as well. Just to go through some of the Mad Bitcoin's tweets and things I retweeted about the conference before we go to Ben. The first day was Industry Day, and I think the conference was really hurt by this. They didn't allow general admission or people who had paid for the normal passes into the speeches. So the speeches looked incredibly empty on the first day, Industry Day. I also shot a video on Industry Day, and really I was criticizing the booths and what they were selling. But a lot of people seem to have this negative attitude towards the conference, that it was an empty conference. And I want to say it was not an empty conference. There was lots of people there. There was also lots of chairs. But let's go to Ben. Ben, what do you think from the outside? Did you think that it was an empty conference? Have you seen the videos? What was your opinion from the outside and the articles and maybe watching some of the videos, whatever people said? Yeah.
It's always hard to look at anything through this kind of Twitter lens because people love to hate on things, and they love controversy. What's that German word for the thrill of failure? That thing. Do you know it, Thomas? What's the word? Freischenblauder or something?
That's where you're laughing at the other people.
Yeah, whatever it is. That word.
I'm going to make of it in a second. Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah, I mean, that should be Twitter should be rebranded to that because it's kind of that. So I think people were kind of elated, but particularly with what's happened with David Belly over the past year. He's quite a controversial character within the Bitcoin industry and ecosystem. I mean, for all the controversy, he's always been an absolute gentleman to me. I've said it before on the show. And he's always been incredibly supportive of free and open source software, giving us free passes, giving us, passes to the whale area, like the area where people pay, thousands and thousands for a ticket where we get all the free food. They give the open source developers passes to that. So for free. And I know other conferences where a conference more recently reached out asking whether we wanted to have a stand, and they were trying to charge us like thousands of dollars for a stand, even though, and that's their their small fee for the free and open source projects. So I've always, for that reason, I have a lot of time for him, and I can only go on my impression of the guy. So it's kind of sad, really. I mean, I know that, like, obviously the characters at the Bitcoin conference were the most appealing, but at that conference they rarely are. It is like, it has always been that kind of conference where the main stage isn't worth going to, but then some of the side stages are great. You have they have like the open source stage, which is great, for example. And I know that Nosta had a lot more of a presence in the conference this year, which is good. And there was probably some really good talks. But the main stages are always a bit, I mean, there's a certain group of Bitcoiners which like it. I mean, within Bitcoin now, over the past 3-4 years, Michael Saylor and those types, they do have like a following of devout followers who hang on their every word, and they, for them, that's what Bitcoin is. And it's like, okay, whatever. And my own experience when I have gone to that conference before is that the people who, like the developers, the people who are working on projects, working on software, they tend to look a little bit disheartened as they're walking around the main area. But I mean, that's always been the nature of the Bitcoin conference. So on the second day, when I then heard that actually attendance was good, I was happy. I was like, cool. Like, okay, the talks on the main stage might not have been great, but like these conferences, they're kind of like, they're multifaceted. Like most people who go to the conferences don't really go and see the talks. They just hang out with Bitcoiners. Like actually, for all the Bitcoiners who buy into all the, macho, whatever, weekend warrior stuff, the majority of Bitcoiners you speak to, and even those guys as well, like if you speak to them, They're interesting people, and there's a certain outlook on the world or on life which attracts people to Bitcoin in the first place. And inevitably, birds of a feather. You have common interest, so they're fun, interesting people to hang out with. So I'm sure people who went to the conference had a good time, and it seemed that they had a good time, and for that I was happy. But hopefully, David Bailey learned from the backlash from the quality of some of the speakers. But then that's kind of their thing. So each conference has got bigger for them. So there's not really an incentive not to continue what they're doing. But as long as they keep supporting the free and open source developers and giving them free passes and having that open source stage and some of those other side stages, then whatever, carry on.
I think they kind of confuse things by having the major speakers on Industry Day. Even though Todd Blanche and Kash Patel both zoomed in, so they weren't any more special than this Zoom call right here, it gave the idea to the media and to the Twitter that I think was against them to begin with, that there was no one there. Because like Ben said, yes, on the second day, which was the first official general admission day, and for general admission, we're talking $700. So this is a pretty serious outlay, I think, for anybody that isn't with a company. I think a lot of people were there with their company or with their product, things like that. From another perspective, just attending the conference, not to criticize too much, and it doesn't really matter because they're not coming back to the Venetian next year. It seems they're going to Nashville for some reason. But the conference layout, the open source stage was hard to get to. It was far away from everything else. The other problem was there's too many stages. There's the main stage, then there's two other large stages, then there was a third or a fourth stage there, then the open source stage, that's 5. I saw some people having speakers at their booths. So there could be, 6 to 10 different speakers. And again, like Ben said, it's mainly people who want to hang out in this trade hall. These people want to have the merchandise and they want to get the free stuff. And, again, side criticism and small things here. They're too tight on the free stuff. You've got to give free t-shirts away to everybody and hope that you find the CEO who invests in your company. There was too much of this idea that I'm going to give you a free t-shirt. You're going to give me $1 million lead for my company. That's not going to work. Like, it's more of, if you get rid of all the t-shirts, maybe you get $1 million lead. But let's go through. We've got some of the mad Bitcoin.
Well, I got it. I got a funny story about one of the conferences. So we were there one year and we were quite involved in the open source area, and it was Miami. I think it was Bitcoin Miami. And we were doing that thing where we're just walking around feeling depressed because of all the corporate knobheads. And but we were kind of happy in our little free and open source area, but we were walking around. And then at the end of the conference, I bumped, everyone's sort of closing down or whatever, and people are starting to leave. And I bumped into someone I recognized, like one of the people who's works at the conference. And they said, "Oh, how did it go?" And I was like, "Oh, I remembered them from like 2019 from the San Francisco one." And I was like, "Yeah, it was all right. It's a bit corporate and a bit shit, but I mean, like the open source area was kind of cool." And then my friend George, who was there, he was like, "Yeah. We should do more of the open source thing. Actually, it's kind of too corporate and it's full of knobheads. And I know the vibe's off." And we're speaking to the guy, and he's going, mm-hmm. And then he said, "Oh, so if you got some ideas, you could email me if you want." And I was like, "Oh, what's your email?" And he's like, "Oh, it's David@b.tc," and it was David Bailey. Like totally lashed his conference to his face. I just thought, because I'm really bad at faces, so I just saw him at the old conference, and I thought he was just some dude who worked there. But I was just like, we were just literally just laying into it for about 10 minutes about how corporate and crap it was. But he took it on the chin, invited me back the next year, so there we are.
Well, that's good of him to have a good sense of humor about it, and I think he takes a lot of negative criticism these days with the Nakamoto company being down so much, but we'll see how it turns out. He seems to be sticking to his guns. A quick review of some of the Mad Bitcoins tweets. We've got Kayla Parilla from Miami, who had this fun sweatshirt. We're going to start here by showing off some of the merch that I bought. Again, I pretty much bought most of this. I'll let you know if they gave me some free stuff or whatever, but now I'm supporting these companies. So she had this fun Bitcoin sweatshirt. Has patches, look at that, to the moon, all those things. So that was pretty cool. Shout out to them. Last year, I bought this great Satoshi Bitcoin jersey. Looks like a baseball jersey. Says Satoshi on the back. Can't beat that. Shout out to this FinTax company. They gave me a free bag. They didn't think it would be on the TV, but there you go. I found this great educational software or educational book company. They have some nice memory cards. I got some of those. They have a book called If You Give a Monster a Bitcoin. And it's a fun little story about Bitcoin. They even have a character that I think looks like Mad Bitcoins, if you think about it. So I like that guy. I want to support them. Their company is called Shaw Armory or Shamory, Shamory. I guess it's Mallory and Scott formed together. This is Mallory and Scott Sibley who wrote these books. They wrote another one here called Good Night Bitcoin. And it's just what you'd think with another, looks a little similar to Mad Bitcoins, which I think is fun. And then they have Satoshi Nakamoto and his Bitcoin invention. And all of these are just really cool books with great graphics and stuff. And it's things they've drawn. Here's Bitcoin going around the world, uniting all the monsters together. And I like that. Got a fun Bitcoin pass here from the Las Vegas. Shout out to my friend Max and McClaw.io. He's trying to engage people who want to work for AI and agents. And then we go deep into the orange bag. Let's see, Ben and Victoria, you guys sticking in there. Are you interested in the merch bag?
I like it. What's in the merch bag? Let's guess. You got a mug. You got a mug.
Oh, I wish I got a mug. I'm not that fancy. I got this Node hat from Van Eck, the fancy investing company. That was pretty cool. They were pretty open and free with that. I got this Pepe shirt. I think it's worth the extra second to open it here, guys. So it was a, $35 t-shirt from the conference official. Pepe on the front, and then this wild. Is in focus maybe there. I don't know if it's focused, but there's a wild Pepe Bitcoin Las Vegas scene on the back with melting desert imagery. So that's pretty cool. Let's see what else we got.
For those of you who thought that Thomas couldn't be bought, you just have to give him a t-shirt and a hat, and then you got him.
I paid for that. I paid for that t-shirt. The hat was free. Let's see. Salt gives us a hodl my Bitcoin cozy. I also think there's kind of a interesting, what did these people buy? What kind of merch? There's a proof of travel from ASIC Exchange. And what I thought was interesting about this thing, it has like little spots for SIM cards. I don't know who'd ever use that. If you'd put your passport in here, but that's a interesting free thing they gave away. They gave me a free pair of socks with my purchase. So that was nice. Somehow we got a free book. Bitcoin is for everyone. Natalie Brunel. So that's cool. We got pens. The hip new pens. I want to go to the dynamic gallery here so you guys can see. If you pay real money for your pen, you can make your logo glow. The future. So we had a pen competition. We tried to see who had the best pen. Not sure how many pens I have here. I got these Rare Pepe. Somebody gave out these free Rare Pepe books. Let's go back to speaker mode. There we go. Van Eck again, making with the good merch. Check this out. They have pins. If you guys can see those good. Bitcoin Van Eck pins. Some of them are green, I guess, but pretty cool. They made pins. Another book they gave me for free, Hayek for the 21st Century. Also, shout out to Aaron Van Weerdum. Yeah, I bought his book, had him sign it.
Oh, what was that? That's I've been waiting for that for a long time. So Aaron Van Weerdum, for years, I would bump into him, and I'd make him feel bad because every time I saw him, I was like, "Have you finished your book yet? Have you finished your book yet?" Because I was looking forward to it. So it's a history of the cypherpunks, as far as I remember, and it kind of goes a bit further back. Now, Aaron Van Weerdum, if you don't know him, He was the editor for Bitcoin magazine and also just a writer for a long time in the Bitcoin space. And his articles are just the best. They're so well put together. And every time there's a new thing, like the the Bitcoin nuts thing, whatever else, I always look for one of his articles because he just breaks it down in a very neutral and easy to read and understand way. So yeah, he's a great writer. So if anyone hasn't got his book, I would suggest go buying that book. He's been in the space since forever, and he's a very knowledgeable Bitcoiner. And yeah, I couldn't think of anyone else I'd rather have write a book really. So have you started it yet?
I haven't started it yet, but I did get him to sign it, and he wrote a beautiful thing to me, and it was really nice. And thanks, Aaron, for signing my book. We got more merch. This company, Blue Cod,
was it a seed?
Did he write free T-shirts?
Did he write a seed in it?
What? No, there's no money in the book. I told him to type his private key. Sign with your private key. But this company, this T-shirt, if you get it wet, it has a Bitcoin logo on it. I don't know. It's kind of cool. Let's see what else we got.
I used to bring swag home from conferences, and then my son would walk around and he'd steal it and walk around with it. And then I stopped him because I was like, one day you're just gonna get kidnapped because I'll just think you're like the son of some fancy schmancy Bitcoiner, and you'll be held to ransom.
Yeah,
so
you can't wear that stuff anymore.
Yeah.
Got some fun Bitcoin dollars here. Look like a space alien. There was this. I guess you could call her like a Bitcoin boxer at this point. This lady Cyborg was there. She was giving out cards. Ken Bozak interviewed her. So that's pretty cool. We've got a bicycle branded playing cards with a Bitcoin logo on it. And they say they're supposed to have, like, you can see the back, not very well. But yeah, it's got kind of a full bicycle design with some Bitcoin chip type, microchip influence in there. Could be interesting. Here's John McAfee as a scarce city image. It says scarce, and they also had Afroman scarce. I don't know if you can see these too well. They're a little bent. And Bitcoin Samurai, I think, about Samurai Wallet.
Oh, that was a big story at the conference, wasn't it? Was the reaction to the wife of the Samurai developer, which was that was kind of interesting. That I think she had like a free Samurai plaque or card, and then security chucked her out. And that was one of those Twitter controversies which everyone jumped on, like, screw you, David Bailey, support Samurai, and actually it was kind of a mix-up. Like she was literally going on stage, and they did support free Samurai. But yeah, scary times for developers of free and open source software. But I was glad to see that, in fact, it was all, a mix-up, and the conference did, in fact, support Samurai and the developers who are currently locked up.
That was a strange one, Ben, because there was a booth that had signs that said Free Samurai, and I think you could pose with it, and they'd take your picture and put you on the internet, and it seemed like they were supportive of it. But then I read online that there were protests, people getting kicked out, and empty halls at the Bitcoin conference. But again, I think people are just negative about it for some reason.
I think it was just the security. I think security were just a bit too heavy-handed. I guess when they're probably told to be, it's that environment where you've got like high-profile people, so security are on edge. Yeah, I got followed by security and pulled to one side because when you went into like the whale area thing in one of the conferences, the one in Nashville, you had to go through a metal detector because they had, the guy with the funny voice who's now your health guy.
RFK Jr.
Yeah, they had him and a couple of others in there, and you had to go through this metal detector, and I had a lighter because I was, so I hid my lighter because I didn't want to have it taken off me. So I sneakily hid it in a plant, and I thought, well, I'll get that on the way out. And then they'd seen me, and then they were like freaking out because they thought I'd put like something there to blow the place up or something. So I got pulled to one side, and I was like, oh shit, no, sorry, it's just a lighter. I didn't want to lose it. So yeah, they are kind of a bit on edge there. So maybe that's why the Free Samurai people, they probably didn't know what it was, didn't have the context for it. But that was a good example of, just I miss Reddit. I miss Reddit Bitcoin. And I know that it's like controversial. Everyone hates Reddit, but Twitter Bitcoin kind of sucks. Everyone's just so tabloid and shouting at each other, and they get the wrong end of the stick. And it's just it's the format of just that little punchy tweet which you're getting out there to get as many likes as you want, as you can. Whereas Reddit, there was always a little bit more context. So I felt this gives a bit more of a sober environment to learn about Bitcoin and what was happening at the time. Then it moved to Twitter, and the Bitcoin scene kind of changed. For a while, it was the same, but I don't know. I think the just the platform of Bitcoin, Twitter, like had an impact on Bitcoin.
I think a lot of that has to do, Ben, as well with the algorithm. They don't show your followers. They don't show our YouTube subscribers our videos anymore. They show them the algorithm, and the algorithm rewards people being loud and yelling. And if you go back to our Bitcoin, they had moderators. So there was a human level to it where people would say, oh, we don't want corporate stuff, or oh, we don't want altcoins, or whatever they had decided on. So it would be moderated. But as well as you said about the problems with them.
They were being criticized, weren't they, for what did they people sort of censorship when Roger Ver's posting his nutty posts on Reddit, and then they would be taken down. So everyone called it censorship. When it's human moderators doing it, censorship. When it's like an algorithm, it's just, I don't know.
Well, moderation implies like a human, or it used to. So at least at the human level, it was more moderation, but people saw it as censorship as well. I don't know. It's a complex issue. And if you want to talk more about complex issues, check out Bitcoin and Liberty from the Majorca conference. Our friends were there handing out buttons and stickers and flyers and stuff. So I was going to show those. And then I had one more piece of merch. Let me see if I could open it. Let's see what's going on live here on the air. I had to sign, I had to like subscribe to these people on Twitter to do this. So check this out. This is from Hash House, and I guess they make containers full of Bitcoin miners. And what this is, according to the instructions on the back in Japanese, and they had 3 or 4 of these, they were going to take them home. You tear off the pads from the sticky note, and at the end you can display it. And for this one, at the end of this sticky note, it'll look like a container. So how cool is that? They gave me a giant, heavy, sticky pad. Let's see if it opens here. Ben is in suspense. Show the viewers, Ben. He can't believe.
I'm in suspense. The swag, yeah. It's always kind of an issue at these conferences. The people with the swag people with their bags like you, where they're walking around and they're getting all the free swag and they come to the open source area where you're doing workshops, and they start grabbing microcontrollers and stuffing them into their bag, and you're like, whoa, that's for a workshop. Put it back. You have to make that here.
It's so hard to tell what's free and not free. And even with this, like this should be free. This is kind of free, but this is kind of some heavy merch. Like she needed a lead for this. So, and look, so it comes with a glass or a plastic kind of container. We go full screen so everyone can see the power of the merch. Really nice glass like container that you could store your notepad in. And then it's a notepad, and you take it out, and on the end it says Hash House, the company, and then you can flip through it. And then from what they said, as you take sheets out of the notepad, eventually at the end it should look like a container. So that's pretty interesting. Most interesting merch, Hash House, whatever they do. See, now even I have to put it back in its little container. Has its own little special box. Anyway, back to reviewing the conference. Probably complaining. Let's see what's going on Twitter. So here we are, Mad Bitcoins, live from Las Vegas. Check out some of these sweet photos. Crypto.com, giant ad, robot talking girl again, still very creepy. Bitcoin 2026 logo, construction going on outside. It's always construction in Vegas. And here's one of those giant American BTC ads, as you can see here, focused on the red, white, and the blue. Here's Mad Bitcoins walking the floor at the world's largest Bitcoin conference, so you don't have to. And as you can see, I went a little viral for this. All right, first time in a long time. And unfortunately, though, I think it's because it was industry day and this was interpreted as negative and having an empty floor, but really it was just negative because I was criticizing who was there. But let's watch a little of this. Ooh, you can draw on the screen now. The place had a real, I've seen the best minds of my generation destroyed by madness kind of feeling. Like we've done it all for this. So that every middle-aged huckster in a suit could get in on the Bitcoin thing and make the sweet money. They'd come from all over to make the sweet money on the Bitcoin. They're gonna make it with taxes, mining, recovery, access. Everything was for sale. But nothing had any meaning at all. There was no meaning anywhere. So,
Bit of gonzo journalism there.
a very interesting.
I like it. It's
I
yeah.
don't think my microphone's working anymore. Yeah, it was fun. Let's see some more. Totally empty. There's a Lambo. Private access. Yields. The bank of the future. Smaller booth. So it was a huge conference. There was plenty and plenty of things to do there. And here's Max Kaiser. You've met the Max, but have you worn his watch? Ha ha ha. Stacy Herbert liked that one. That was fun. They had a lot of Bitcoin art there. A lot of it derivative. There was some nice stuff here. I wanted to bid on, but didn't get a chance to. They had many colorful characters. Here's Brock Pierce wearing a Chance shirt. And what's fun about this picture, it looks like he has 3 or 4 legs. It's pretty fun. There was this guy in a Bitcoin robot, space alien type outfit. The Bitcoin defender lady from Salt, she was walking around interviewing everybody. And Jesse Powell, the master of the Kraken, who had his own magic tournament at the event. It was very cool. They had a marketing says rented Lambos are still cool. We got to see Ken Bozak and hang out. Tim Draper spoke and said that Bitcoin companies should hold, all companies should hold Bitcoin. It's irresponsible not to. Many people complained about the all corporate conference speakers. There's just lots of pictures here from the event. There's a little robot going around. They had the mining table again at the Bitcoin Magazine stage. That was, I guess, another stage. There was what? So it was 6th stage. They had Bitcoin jocks. These people are all, this is a professional wrestler and a professional boxer here. So they still had a lot of empty things.
He makes boxes.
I think he makes people into boxes and he boxes against them. There's Ken doing interview in a hot tub. And there's a Satoshi as a flying thing moving around, just like Satoshi always wanted. You could share your crypto story in this booth. It said, share, I put confess. And there was a line to meet Adam Back, and I got this excellent photograph. Adam Back, please come to South Korea. Obviously by these people who had visited from South Korea. So that was pretty cool. A couple other pictures. They had large displays with large video screens. Here's a pirate speaking to a guy. I don't know what his story was. No more someday. Bitcoin is now. said the large logos, Bitcoin is now. They sold some Bitcoin guitar art you could buy in the art section in the auctions. They also auctioned off the original Mt. Gox protest signs. These were pretty interesting. I think these went for more than $7,000, so pretty expensive. A lot of rare Pepe art there. They had the Bitcoin grumpy guy. No free food for the press. Ben, you're lucky to have a whale pass. That's the free food one. This is Cyborg, the boxer, meeting Ken Bozak. Bitcoin 2026 is absolutely packed, says the conference, fighting back against the thing. Although here they show the exhibitor floor.
F you Fed Fest.
Yeah, that guy's everywhere. But yeah, they show the exhibitor floor, not the thing. There's Ben and I in the press section. We got in there. There's the new guitar-shaped hotel that they're building in Las Vegas. Very popular new hotel. I'm in the press lounge, undercover, here for the free honey. They had good honey the first day, bad honey the other days. It was Heinz honey, just not as good. I checked out some of the speeches. There were not a lot of people there, and these guys were following the dress code. You got the sport coat and the suit but no tie. That means you're cool. Suit but no tie is cool. I did one of those walk and talks on the Las Vegas Strip. You want to check that out?
April 28, 2026, and we're live in front of the Treasure Island, the pirate ship, the old show that used to be. I've seen a lot of other people get sweet, free footage from the Strip, and I think, hey, why not me?
There it is, getting free footage from the Strip. Then I would walk down the Strip. Here's the part 2.
Las Vegas. What a great place for a Bitcoin convention. Billions of dollars of real estate. And now you, fitting right in with your Bitcoin shirt everywhere you go. And the brand new giant guitar.
Can you hear Thomas, Victoria?
No, is he talking?
I think he's talking.
Did I lose all the audio? Am I gone? No?
He's still going.
How about now?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Oh, all right. There's a lot of buttons here. Oh, well, whatever I was saying, I'll say it again. There I am walking on the Strip. There's all the Bitcoin Magazine people having a good time. It went well. Good conference. My friend Jesse Powell or Bono, you decide. And I met Vlad. Vlad was the only one to recognize me. So I was undercover. Vlad interviewed me, got the hard-hitting Mad Bitcoins interview. And then I did a follow-up video walking around the conference just to kind of say, you know, there are a lot of people here. My previous video was on Industry Day. I didn't mean to represent that no one came to the conference. Although, I mean, really, you know, there are spaces here. There's orange spots. You can see the floor. But I would agree, Ben, there's lots of people. Here's yet another stage. As you can see, there were just so many stages and a big dinosaur for some reason. I don't know why. There's the president's son, Eric Trump, complaining about the interface for Bitcoin. It's too hard to use. And finally, some more.
I can't use the Bitcoin. I can't use the Bitcoin.
It's too hard to use.
Throwing his trouser across the room. I'm going to make a company. I'm going to make a company.
No head.
Give me your money.
That's what he wants. And finally, I got to meet Adam Back, who knew who I was. So that was pretty sweet. And Adam Back later liked this tweet. So the conference all
you
turned
got
out well.
You got cool Adam back now, haven't you? You know, after all the yeah, he's under fire at the moment, poor Adam Back. The CTO who got rolled out on Epstein's Island. But all of a sudden he looks like someone out of what's that show? You know, with the detectives. Oh Christ, Miami, not Miami Vice.
Miami Vice.
No, and no. Oh, begins with an N.
NYPD Blue.
Not NSA Miami. Oh,
Oh.
crikey. Anyway, he looks like the guy out of that. He's all in black.
Well, it was great to meet Adam back, even if it's the new media managed version. But it was still super fun to talk to him. We talked about various Satoshi candidates and what we should do with the Satoshi coins and the quantum problem. Then there's a little ad here for Ben and LN Bits. Ben runs his entire brick and mortar stat using only LN Bits. Check out LN Bits. Good job, Ben. And shout out to BTC Prague. I'm not sure if I'm going to make it there, but that looks like a cool conference, BTC Prague. Check that out. And here's the Bitcoin magazine and conference team celebrating their hard work. Good job on a great conference, BTC magazine and team. It was very cool. So it turned out all right. And next year they're going to Nashville, I guess. So any more on the conference, Ben, Victoria? You've seen all the videos. You've seen
CSI Miami. CSI Miami. You know the guy with the glasses? He's like, because Adam Back's all in black now. He's like, he looks like he's going to go solve a crime in Miami somewhere with that. Put the glasses up, you know.
All right, here we go. Bringing it in. CSI Miami. There you go.
There he is. There's Adam Back. Oh, he's all in black. I remembered that wrong. He's got a stripy
CSI
shirt.
Miami. The complete.
He's a little off.
I love though that the stripy shirt, you did identify the image of the show. The stripy shirt is the poster for the show. Look.
Yeah, I thought he was all in black. But anyway, the new cool Adam Back. Because Adam Back before, he always looked like, you know, the university, what he is. He was a university professor guy, and so he always looked a bit disheveled. He didn't really look like a CEO, I guess. Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe someone's taken him to one side and said, "Look, Adam, you need a new," because he always wore the same clothes too. We speak about Adam Back too much on the show, I think, but and his fashion statements. But he always wore the same clothes, and now he'll probably just be in black. You'll have like the black Adam Back, Adam Black. Maybe that's why he went black. Andy.
Well, it was funny this time, Ben. I mean, I'll tell the whole story if you want, but the first day we walked by and there was a line like 20 or 30 people to meet him, and I was like, "Oh, we're not going to get to meet Adam Back this time," you know. But that's okay. Like I've met him before. And one time I even just nodded at him. I was like, I'll be cool. I'll just like, I won't bother him. I'll just say, you know, hello, like I know who you are. And then the next day, this guy kind of pulled us over and we were standing near the booth. And I think he was like managing the photographs for Dr. Back. And so he's like, "Oh, do you want a photograph with Dr. Back?" You know, he moved me in like I would just do the photo. And I walked up to him like I knew who he was. So I was like, "Oh, hi, Adam. Good to see you again." I shook his hand because we've met 3 or 4 times. He's been on the show, so on and so forth. So, and he's super cool. I think he knew who I was right away, or at the very least, he knew it was a Bitcoiner he could talk to. And I started giving him a hard time about being the New York Times Satoshi. And then he hit back and he's like, "Seems there are a lot of Satoshis these days." Moving on to Hal Finney and Len Sassaman. But even that, he criticized the documentary. He said, and again, I don't want to speak out of turn with Dr. Back. I don't think this is a secret, but he was like, at first it seemed like the documentary was focused on Hal Finney, and he's so funny because he's like, "But Jameson Lopp came in and took care of that." So then they had to redirect the documentary onto Len Sassaman, and so I kind of agreed with him there. I haven't been able to see the film yet, and then we kind of moved on really quickly to talking about Satoshi's coins and the quantum thing. And I told him how I think for the media, a lot of the problem is these Satoshi coins. And he had some kind of idea. It was a little technical and over my head how Satoshi could claim the coins and spend them later, but they could still be quantum proof and they wouldn't have to be frozen forever. So I'm interested in that idea. But I told him what I thought is what's going to happen and maybe what we should hope for, because either the quantum hackers are going to get them, or I thought maybe white hat Google comes in, and white hat Google has a quantum computer and they get them and they hold them. And to me, this seemed comforting because white hat Google could hold them. But Adam Back, bless his heart, pushed back on it and was like, "I don't think Google could do that because they're a publicly traded company and they would be stealing Satoshi's coins." And I was like,
nice.
That's one to think on. And then I felt bad because there was a line forming, and I was like, I didn't want to take all this time. So thank you so much, talking about. And my brother got that great picture of us taking there. And Ken Bozak later commented he didn't think that Adam Back shook many hands, and he shook my hand. So really cool again to spend a little bit of time with Dr. Back, and just so cool to see him at the conference. And there's somebody that's big but still knows who we are, at least is willing to talk to us for a couple minutes. So very cool. Ben, more to say? Go ahead.
No, I mean we've already sang his praises enough on this show, but he's a dork. He's one of us, and just like I was saying about Twitter before, it's this amplifier for shit. And Adam Back kind of got swept up in that with all the Epstein stuff, but yeah, he's a good dude. He's a good dude, and a pleasure to hang out with. I've got a Telegram thread with him where we just complain a lot at each other about just the VC world and whatever else. He's a very down to earth normal person. He's a good person. So this is why. But I mean, not everybody obviously can meet him and know him as that. So I guess if you were to then see the controversy, what I was interested, when he bumped into Vlad, did he say anything about Paul Stortz and the drive chain hard fork, which they're arranging?
He did ask me directly about it on camera, and I told him what I think and how I think is similar to Bcash, and they're kind of copying off of Bitcoin. And he was like, oh, but they're not taking the name, and I do credit them that, because that's a good thing. But they are taking like the Bitcoin subscriber list, essentially, right? They're going to airdrop it or copy the ledger or whatever you want to say and give it to everybody. But Vlad did seem very interested in it, and he also seemed critical that people were not spending Bitcoin. He asked me when the last time I spent Bitcoin, and I couldn't remember, or I didn't have a clear vision of it. So you know how that is. But it was great to see Vlad, great to be interviewed, and he had a cameraman with him, and he looked like he was very busy. I'm not sure if he was there for all 3 days of the conference or if he just got the last day.
Again, Vlad is
travel.
Vlad is one of the great journalists in the Bitcoin space, not without controversy, and particularly with the support which he now has for the drive chain fork. I'm not a big fan I like drive chains, but I'm not really that much of a fan of Paul and the way he's approached the problem of trying to implement it or promote it. But that's a good, you're correct, Thomas. I think in what you're saying there, it's the carrot on the stick, just trying to jump on the back of the subscriber list to Bitcoin by creating the hard fork. But for those of you who don't know, the name they took was eCash, and which kind of annoys me as well, because it's not. I mean, eCash kind of relies on mints, and there's no mint. It's just Bitcoin with bit 300, bit 301 in, and it's typical kind of Paul Stortz antagonizing the Bitcoin ecosystem. I don't like eCash in Bitcoin, whatever, but there is an eCash scene in Bitcoin, and it's just antagonizing them. So it's been received pretty negatively by the Bitcoin community, but I think people are looking forward to having an airdrop where they can just sell and dump on the market. So it'd be interesting to see what the market does when the hard fork launches. I'm not sure when it happens. That's on ecash.com if you want to check it out. Hopefully there'll be support.
Again, it's similar to Ethereum, where there's this Bitcoin and you can build within it, and you have to wait and be patient, or you can go outside and do whatever you want. And these guys are going to do whatever they want, right, Ben? I mean, they're not really helping Bitcoin. Like, it's about selling this token. They have a new token. It's going to be valuable. You should get some of this token.
The argument would be that you're creating a testnet to showcase all the ideas with real money, and then you're giving all the Bitcoiners some of the money they can use on those ideas. But so you can with a drive chain, you can they've replicated, so they have basically like Ethereum on a drive chain on Bitcoin. So you can use Ethereum. You could do Ethereum like stuff with, if it were safe drive chains were on Bitcoin, you could do Ethereum like stuff on Bitcoin. Or you can have like Zcash level privacy. You can have all these different chains which have all these different properties. But why would anyone? So their argument is that all the builders from Bitcoin will leave Bitcoin to go work on eCash because you can do all these things on it. And then it's like, well, why would they if the underlying asset is just a shitcoin? Like, they would just, if they wanted to do Monero stuff, they would go to Monero. Zcash, they go to Zcash. Ethereum, they go to Ethereum. or they're patient and like Bitcoin is slow to move, and that's one of its properties actually, that it's slow to move and slow to change. And people figure out, sometimes complex, but ways to like solve these problems where you can do interesting things on Bitcoin, where you can do Ethereum like things or have privacy or whatever else. So yeah, I think probably, again, going back to Adam Back, I think I remember in the block wars, he had that quote that it's like working on a Boeing 747 while it's in mid-flight, and you don't want to break it. And that's the concern of drive chains. So I think for the plight of drive chains, I just think everyone's got such a bad taste in their mouth, and now this is just kind of a nail in the coffin for the technology, which is a shame, because actually I thought it was a decent proposal to to have all these like different chains you could do stuff on. But yeah.
It does seem interesting. Like you said, Ben, you have to have a test network that's worth money so you can attract hackers, so that the hackers will come and break your system, and by not breaking it, prove how great your system is, or by breaking it, ruin your system. But then again, for an investor, why would you invest in hacker bait test chain? I guess because there's going to be big gains, big gains. But again, I don't know why they don't want to build inside the system. I know it's difficult and slow, but you could build on Bitcoin. You could be part of Bitcoin. Let's keep moving. Check out worldcryptonetwork.com, where we've got 4,903 videos, including a lot of shorts, including at least one short about the mad Bitcoin's patent speech. That looks like a good one. We've got Victoria Jones here talking about Roger Ver, and even Ben saying, is Adam back Satoshi Nakamoto? And that was only a few weeks ago. Check it out at worldcryptonetwork.com. I think this is issue 4 or 5. Celsius founder Alex Mashinsky banned from crypto industry in $10 million FTC settlement. The settlement represents a massive reduction from an initial $4.7 billion judgment against the Celsius founder. And I guess they can ban him from being in the crypto industry. He can't have any businesses or support any Bitcoin companies or anything. It says right here, Mashinsky is permanently restrained and enjoined from advertising, marketing, promoting, offering, or distributing, or assisting in the advertising, marketing, promoting, offering, or distributing of any product or service that can be used to deposit, exchange, invest, or withdraw assets, whether directly or through an intermediary. And it's interesting to hear this language echoed again. It wasn't too long ago that Kevin Mitnick, the computer security and hacker, was banned from the internet, not allowed to use the internet for years, leading to the Free Kevin movement. Interesting here because it also brings up an actor called Kevin Free, but you can see the Free Kevin stickers used to be everywhere. And this is also kind of the plot of Hackers, the movie, where the kid was banned for the internet, banned from computers for 15 years. And then he came back and he was just as good a hacker as before. Victoria Jones, you haven't spoken in a while. What do you think about Alex Mashinsky and Celsius being banned from the cryptocurrency industry?
Absolutely. Finally, justice has been served.
It is fantastic. A lot of people lost a lot of money in Celsius. It was a lending platform, so people would put their Bitcoin in there and then get loans of, maybe 70% or something for that Bitcoin, with the goal that someday they'd be able to come back and be whole again. He ran off with the money. There wasn't money. I forget the exact story, but there was a lot of trouble inside of Celsius from Alex Mashinsky, who planned and promised that they were a bank and said they were going to tear down the banks, and basically used, again, a lot of the Bitcoin rhetoric. And we didn't talk about this much before, but everyone I talked to at the conference pretty much all agreed the same thing. Everything they were saying on the stage is things that Bitcoiners had said 10 years ago, whether it was me or Aaron von Weerdem or Trace Mayer, who said these things, or Roger Ver, a lot of other people in the old days. They said all these things, and now they're repeating them. Mashinsky and Celsius repeated the Bitcoin things to separate people from their money. We're going to take down the banks, and we're the anti-bank, and we're paying you greater interest because we're such an anti-bank, and Bitcoin and crypto are letting us do this and all these things. And that allowed them, according to the court decisions, to run their scam. Ben Ark, what do you think? He's been banned from crypto. I'm sure he could still contribute it as an anonymous developer, creating things like Satoshi Nakamoto and so forth. But what do you think about the latest ban from crypto?
Yeah, when you get like any new technology, you get the grifters pile in and they try and make a quick buck. And he's just one of them. And it's an example of, with these, like the American Bitcoin company, there's this new thing, Bitcoin, and there's these new companies which are Bitcoin centric. And the regulators take a little time to catch up in these clear net markets. Yeah, but they will catch up, and they will regulate to try and avoid people just losing money and people being exploited and having all their money taken from them. And this is another example of that. It's a bit like before, Thomas, when you mentioned the pink sheets when people would trade the penny stocks. Like that was kind of a murky industry where it just wasn't really regulated, so no one really knew what the rules were, which meant that lots of people could grift off the back of it, and then convince people that they were cold call people and convince them that they could make loads of money on the stock market, just like they see all the rich people on The Rich and Famous or whatever that TV show was in American, and they could join them if only they.
Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. I swear that's probably where I first heard about Donald Trump. I'm sure he was on there. Like,
well, I
having
mean,
a
so
good time,
so circling back round, that's Trump, isn't it? That he's jumping on the back of this thing. It's an opportunity. It's a murky, unregulated, new kind of industry. How can we make some money on the back of it? And Michael Saylor he's turned on that money printer, but it's just a in the Saylor example with strategy, it's a hack which will get regulated out of existence, and people are just able to do it for a short period. Not comparing him to the Sassaman guy, because the Sassaman guy is truly terrible looking person. And we all have the choice, and we choose not to. Like, all of us could shitcoin. All of us could set up some Ponzi scheme where we take investor money and then build some like ridiculous Bitcoin. But we're not. We're building stuff. We put our effort into actually trying to make the world a better place. And actually, we have the reason we're drawn to Bitcoin is because we have hope in the technology that it can make the world a fairer place, and markets fairer, and money. Just fix money. And then a lot of other stuff also gets fixed along the way. And we choose not to. So, I dock my hat to everyone this is why, when you walk around that conference and you bump into just regular normal Bitcoiners, this is why they're great. Because all of them are perfectly able to set up some scam, some ICO, some whatever the most current way of scamming people out of money is. But we don't. We're interested in Bitcoin. It's cool, and the technology is very powerful, and we want to promote it, and we want to promote it because we actually want the world to be a better place. So, I dock my hat to you. An interesting point on hackers there, which I was, the character in Hackers was loosely based on Mandex. So Mandex was a hacker in the 80s who I think Thomas is frozen, or he's just got a really good stare. Mandex was a hacker in the 80s. The 80s, I think it was the 80s, who got into the CIA and then was not allowed to have access to a computer until he was 18 years old, or whatever it was, or 20, I don't know. And Mandex was Julian Assange. So Julian Assange then set up WikiLeaks, which is a way for people who had cables to then publish them anonymously. But I have a theory that most of the people who are publishing cables on WikiLeaks were in fact just Julian Assange. It was just Julian Assange hacking into stuff. And then he built this mechanism where he could release that information in a way which, that is entirely speculative and, just, but it kind of makes sense when you think about it. So there's a little connection there with our Bitcoin industry, because obviously Julian Assange was an original cypherpunk, solid dude, and a strong Bitcoiner. First time I heard about Bitcoin was when WikiLeaks started accepting Bitcoin for payments because Visa had cut them off. So there we are.
It's also worth noting, Ben, on Mashinsky and Celsius, he looked if you go back in time, and the reason that we're so critical of Saylor and so many other people is that Celsius looks just like MicroStrategy. They have a giant booth, they have t-shirts, they have a bunch of people, they're making all the speeches at all the conferences. It's hard to tell the difference between who's a scammer and who's a real company. And as someone that's been in the industry for a little bit of time, you've seen so many scams and they all look great. They all have the t-shirts and the magnets and they have the big giant booths. I think that Celsius in particular, Martine and I were at a conference, and I think we were in Amsterdam, might have been Bitcoin Amsterdam, and they had this weird tunnel tube with like mirrors that you could walk through for Instagrammers or something. And I think it was sponsored by Celsius. And it's super funny to think about a tube full of mirrors as a metaphor for a loan instrument that doesn't pay you back and you don't get your money back from your loan.
I mean, we're seasoned Bitcoiners, and you know, seasoned Bitcoiners still fall for these scams. I was at a conference, I was advancing Bitcoin in London, which is a great conference, by the way, if you ever get a chance to go. And I was a little hungover, and then I wandered into the conference, sat down, and there was someone talking something very techy on the stage, and I couldn't quite keep up. And I was thinking, wow, this guy's smart. This is like some crazy new technology I don't really understand. And I sat there for a while. Like, I usually sit on the floor on my laptop because I like to stretch my legs out. So I sat on the floor and I'm like, what is he talking about? I realized there was a scam Bitcoin conference full of scams, and they'd scheduled it in the same building on the same day of advancing Bitcoin. And I had been taken in hook, line, and sinker. I thought that was the conference I was supposed to be going to. And I sat there for about half an hour before I realized this isn't even the right conference. I don't recognize any of these people. And I went upstairs, and that's where our conference was. And I thought it took me a little while to figure it out, but like for a normal person, how do you differentiate between what's a scam and what's not? And then we go back to the age-old thing of just buy some Bitcoin from, you know, a legitimate exchange or whatever, and then put it on a hardware wallet and don't mess around with any of these companies because, like you say, you don't know which ones are good players and you don't know which ones are bad players until they go tits up and they take everyone's money.
Well, and they always look huge. One more story from the past here. I was at the original Miami Bitcoin conference, the North American Bitcoin conference, as they called it back in those days. And all of the screens and the bar and all the things were sponsored by Paycoin. And Paycoin had about 4 or 5 booths with giant backdrops and employees, and they had the loan coin and the pay base and all the different things. And I got a bag full of merch with all the different kinds of things. And the whole thing exploded. There is no Paycoin. And it's interesting to think about now at the Bitcoin conference, Ben, on one of the large hotels nearby, Resorts World, the entire hotel, the left half, they have a big video screen as big as the hotel. It said XRP, the whole conference. Ripple is the solution, raise the standard, XRP, the whole conference, counter advertising the Bitcoin conference. They also had a couple of signs on the strip that would occasionally say XRP is the standard, Ripple the standard, all these things. And even Zcash got into it a little bit, sending 3 or 4 wrapped cyber trucks into the conference and then paraded in and out of like the valet parking area. They were like constantly going in and out of the thing to try to counter advertise Zcash. So it's interesting to think they see these things and to see how big something like Paycoin or XRP could be. And then who knows what happens to it in the future? Who knows what happens to MicroStrategy? Who knows what happens to Coinbase? All of these companies. But we're running out of time. We've got one more brief story. Tennessee becomes the second state to outlaw Bitcoin and crypto ATMs. Tennessee has become the second state to outlaw Bitcoin and crypto ATMs, making it a criminal offense to own or operate the machines. And of course, what if I told you so? I told you so this would happen. And interesting side note, back to Nashville. The Bitcoin 2027 convention is going to Nashville, which is in the state of Tennessee, which is not allowing crypto ATMs and seems to have a negative attitude towards Bitcoin. So that's interesting. They also have a Parthenon in Nashville. They have a full-scale, fully painted Sculptures on the inside, I think, a model of the Parthenon in Nashville. So I might go to check that out. But really quickly, Victoria Jones, what do you think about the second state to ban crypto ATMs? You live in the United Kingdom, which has banned crypto ATMs, at least in England, as far as I know. Friends used to have them. They don't anymore. It's against the law. And the interesting irony that the Bitcoin conference is going back to the state that just banned ATMs.
Yeah, I was going to start off by saying that, yeah, they've already banned them in the UK. I'm not surprised, actually. I mean, a lot of people are getting scammed by them. And it is a fairly treacherous scam, you know, calling someone up and telling them that they're about to be put into jail unless they pay a certain ransom through a Bitcoin ATM where it's anonymous and they can't, you know, people can't track where the payment's gone, and once the money's gone, it's gone. You know, it certainly is a vulnerability, especially for people who aren't used to understanding how these things work. So, you know, in a situation where you're made to feel fearful in the moment, you know, many people will make bad decisions. So yeah, but unfortunately, it's a bit like the problem we're trying to avoid by creating Bitcoin in the first place. It's like, you know, you blame the gun for the fact that someone shot someone. You know, it's not Bitcoin's fault that they're being scammed. It's a useful tool, but you know, the scammers have accessed this tool in order to do dastardly things. And isn't it unfortunate that, you know, this is what we're dealing with human nature? Yeah, so yeah, human nature requires some management once we fix the money.
Ben Ark, what do you think? Bitcoin conference, ATMs, no more.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like it's a tricky one, isn't it? Like how do you live in a society where there are vulnerable people. You don't want them to be taken advantage of. So you create these regulations and laws to stop them from being taken advantage of, but then inevitably that strips freedom away from other people. And I guess it's kind of the approach of the society. Like I always found, I always like Switzerland. Like if you go to Switzerland, they kind of let you do anything, but they just kind of advise you. So like, you know, in Bern, there's this crazy fast running river you can jump in. It takes you into the city, but it's dangerous. They don't stop you from jumping in the crazy river with the like dangerous currents, which could really hurt you. They just have lots of posters saying, if you are going to jump in the river, just be careful. Do it in these particular spots. Stay in the middle. Like they kind of advise you, and I kind of feel that's how society should operate when it comes to ATMs. Like, okay, they have a problem with Bitcoin ATMs. Well, then advise people on like put more information out there. You know, like maybe say that okay, you can have ATMs, but you know they have to have some information on the side of them explaining like some of these ATM scams, and that would probably stop half of the ATM scams because they're usually following the same format for ripping off these old dears by making them put money into a Bitcoin ATM. So yeah, it's but I mean there are solutions. So can I share screen?
Oh, now it pops up an allow window. Ooh.
Right. So yeah, so like one of the projects we have in Allen Bits is the Fossa. Like actually, and this is an offline Bitcoin ATM. So it doesn't even need to be connected to the internet. So I have like 3 of these. I could stick them anywhere. No one knows it belongs to me. People put cash in, and then they scan a QR code or whatever, and they get the money out. And it's actually pretty cool because we use bolts. So it's Allen Bits powering it in the back end, but then because we have bolt swaps, you can actually withdraw on chain or liquid as well. But these cost like 150 quid to make or 200 quid to make one of these things. And that price will come down as well. And we've got it in this fancy box, but you can obviously stick it in anything. And the idea behind this, we started this project because in Britain they banned ATMs, so you couldn't have Bitcoin ATMs. And we thought, well, okay, well, you want an ATM which you can put, if you've got a Bitcoin cafe or a bar, you can stick it on the end of the bar. People can have some fun putting some money in and getting some Bitcoin out. And if the fuzz ever roll up and say, you know, whose is this Bitcoin ATM? You can just go, oh, it's for the, I don't know, and you know, you lose a couple of £100. So I think there's some kind of activism which can happen. I mean, this is, you know, what the cypherpunks did originally, isn't it? When it came to activism for encryption, like you need to make mockery of their laws in a way by making it really easy to access the tools. So who knows? Maybe in Nashville at that conference, maybe a whole bunch of these ATMs will magically pop up around the city, and no one will know who they belong to, but people can buy some Bitcoin. I'm sure they'll get ripped off the walls, actually, I suppose, and the money taken from them. But yeah, it's a cool project.
I think
so,
the real solution is going to be a person to person Bitcoin ATMs, just like in
Oh!
Russia, people were trading dollars for rubles.
So
or,
in
rubles
the
for blue jeans.
so in the TPOS, the POS we have in Allenbits as well. If I go here, I haven't got enabled for this one, but there's a menu, and you can have an ATM mode. So you can press ATM mode, put in a PIN, and then enter an amount, and it'll generate withdraw QR code. So the idea is that I think that all POSs should have the ability. I mean, depending on your local jurisdiction and what the laws are, blah blah blah. But if I'm accepting Bitcoin payments, if somebody doesn't know what Bitcoin is, then I might want to sell them some Bitcoin. Not that I would do that in the UK, of course, but just in case, you know, you live in a country where you can do such things, we have an ATM feature. And I think that's a good example of how you can get around some of this legislation. I wouldn't do it, of course, but in maybe some other more less scrupulous merchants, they might do some speakeasy selling of Bitcoin under the table to some of their customers. So yeah, I think, like you say, you just, and I mean I think that's the answer is to make it so widespread and ubiquitous that having laws against it is silly, and then it's more just the job of the state and government to educate people.
And not that it matters for the Bitcoin ATMs, because I think they're toast. Bitcoin's a one-way, non-cancelable payment. It's like email. It's money for adults. And unfortunately, though, I think that they're going to probably, and I'm sure Martine would be here in the chat telling us that they already have, they're probably going to have to put training wheels on these things. If you want to send $1,000 through a Bitcoin ATM to somebody else, they're probably going to have to delay the transfer for 3 to 5 days and check with the local police and see if it's illegal and all of those things. And then I don't know if you're going to want to use a Bitcoin ATM. I'm not sure you're going to get the features that you were getting previously. There are still Bitcoin ATMs in the casinos here in Las Vegas. I think the Resorts World casino that had the XRP advertisement on it actually has crypto ATMs. You can put your cash winnings into those and then buy crypto. They still have them at the D and the Circa, some of the newer casinos on the downtown.
In Vegas, how do the gamblers respond to it? Because I imagine there's like probably quite a bit of a Bitcoin crypto scene in Vegas. Because they, you know, they're interested.
At first, it seemed like it was a really large thing, and the D Hotel and Casino, and specifically, was having Bitcoin signs, and we accept Bitcoin, and a lot of that. And I think we lost a lot of them with the switching off of BitPay or having to switch to the Lightning Network, or the Bitcoin fees are too high. There still are some ATMs so people can cash out, and I've always thought, I don't have information to support this, but in my head, I think if you won a bunch of money in Vegas and then you went and bought Bitcoin with it, who knows what happened to that money? If you're, say, the Canadian Tax Authority, or who knows what else is going on, right? So I thought Bitcoin ATMs might be useful for that. I think the fees are pretty high. There's still, I think, a couple of meetups, a little bit of Bitcoin community here. I'm not sure. It wasn't really there at the event. I think perhaps the volunteers for the event, the people who were very hardcore about not letting anyone get free food or get free drink or get into the fancy room, the whale room beyond the pro room. I think those people might have been from the local meetup. So not the best community building exercise, I'd guess, if you're the security guards for the Bitcoin conference. But again, it's a way for them to be involved. I don't know. I don't want to be critical of everything, but there's not I don't feel there's that much of a crypto community here, Ben. I think there are Bitcoin ATMs, Bitcoin ATM companies, but who knows for how long if this law keeps going.
I think that Bitcoin is huge for the gambling industry. Now, I hate gambling. I don't like it. I don't like the industry. I don't, yeah. But I think Bitcoin just, it goes so well with the industry because you can send money in and out of the computer in a way which is, you know, if you're doing it on Lightning Network, is pretty anonymous, instant, doesn't require you to plug in your credit card details, so your partner doesn't see that you're a degenerate gambler. And it's been, I've been amazed that the gambling industry haven't picked up on this. That it's so good for what they do. But yeah, if I didn't care, and I would make gambling software because yeah, I think it's it's an industry which desperately needs to be disrupted with Bitcoin. But I don't like gambling, so I can't, alas.
It's interesting, Ben, because I know Resorts World, we keep talking about them, but they're a newer casino and they were fined by the Gambling Commission for working with known bad money. They had people that maybe were laundering or had questionable funds and they were bringing them in and they wanted their action, you know, because they were big gamblers. It's interesting to think that they could use Bitcoin. But once again, I think it's similar to Apple Pay and Samsung Pay and Google Pay or whatever. We just got outfoxed by the banks, by the old companies. This horrifies me, and you're probably going to be sitting at home with your mouth open. But the Nevada government has decided, they have approved that you could put your bank card directly into the slot machine. I haven't seen this deployed in the casinos yet, but it's legal, so that means it's going to happen. So that means, and I don't know how bad the interface will be, how many barriers they're going to put between it, but you could have your $1,000 of rent money in there, and you could very easily push the button 10 times and bet all of your rent money on this slot machine. And a lot of degenerate gamblers are going to bet their rent and their food and their savings and maybe their life savings. I don't know how bad it could be, but this is being allowed. So normally you'd think that this is a shady industry and that gambling would be discouraged. But since the Supreme Court ruled that you can have sports gambling in all 50 states for the basis of equality, which has been a boon to the sports gambling industry, I'm not sure if gambling's even seedy anymore, Ben. I mean, I think everybody wants their tax cut, and I think that the Resorts World, by taking the dirty money, was probably trying to cut Uncle Sam out of his cut, and you shouldn't do that. But other than that, I feel the sky's the limit for gambling.
Yeah, I think the other big thing for when it comes to ATMs is remittances as well. Obviously, you know, in the US, you have a lot of workers from other countries in Central South America, and they send that money back home. And one of the best ways to do that is through a Bitcoin ATM. But I mean, I suppose the fees are still quite high, so they're probably just going to use Western Union. But I feel that's a real lost opportunity as well with ATMs is remittances, because Western Union charge a fortune. And if you think, I remember Kelly talking that like 90% of their economy was remittances from people sending money from America, from working away in America. And then if you think Western Union's taking like 7-10% of that, then that's, you know, like 5% of their economy is just going into Western Union, which is bonkers. You're just moving value from one person to another in the age of the internet. It shouldn't, there shouldn't be a middleman taking the money. You should just be able to like send it. Well, and even if there is a middleman taking the money, it should be a low amount, because there should be a healthy competition of ATMs. So yeah, I'm all for Bitcoin ATMs. Just educate people against the perils.
It is sad, Ben, and we didn't talk about this at the conference at all. This wasn't what the conference was about. But in the old days, we used to talk about putting Western Union out of business, and people could just use Bitcoin or now the Lightning Network to send their funds around. But now the best we can hope for, and I think this is happening, you know, again, there's no end to the irony in this world. The best we can hope for is Western Union adopting crypto or some form of crypto as a rail. And then they use Bitcoin in the background, and this reduces their costs so that maybe they could give some of this back to the consumer and give some of the fees back. But again, we still just have to use them forever. and keep paying them fees.
What do you think,
I think we've got
Victoria, with it when it comes to, because obviously this is like your sort of field of expertise really, is like Bitcoin being used for, I think, remittances. I mean, it seems like it's such an undervalued a thing we should be building for. God damn
Yeah,
it, we've forgotten
absolutely.
all the good stuff which we were supposed to be building for. Everyone's building these treasury companies.
Absolutely, but the trouble is, in a lot of these poorer countries, they want USDT because it's too much to get their head around what Bitcoin is. You know, you need a certain level of education. You know, Bitcoin is very um quite complicated, really. There are so many elements to it. You need to understand finance, you need to understand the history of finance, you need to understand politics, you need to understand how software works. And although, you know, you get a lot of very competent hustlers in a lot of these countries, they haven't had that support. So it, you know, understanding Bitcoin is quite an intellectual exercise, really. And they just, you know, I think they just appreciate having a digital version of the dollar. But unfortunately, the dollar, you know, they're trying to turn that into the next central bank digital currency. So unless they wake up, they're going to end up in a digital prison like everyone else. So I mean, I've always held out hope for the fact that, you know, Bitcoin will ultimately disrupt the entire system. So as you were saying with your little FOSS ATMs, you know, this is how Bitcoin disrupts politics. You know, it goes across borders, it breaks laws. You know, your laws are useless unless you're able to enforce them. And I think this is one of the reasons why you've got so many corporates now involved in Bitcoin. It's not a case, it's kind of a case of, well, we can't beat them, so we're going to join them and try and disrupt them from the inside. And, you know, I think unless people, you know, smarten up, I think they're going to succeed. So, yeah.
There's the huge business opportunity. Like if you have, I don't know where El Salvadorians live in America, where maybe there's an area where they, you know, people tend to kind of live in similar areas. Maybe there's like an El Salvadorian community. And maybe the local shop there, they could have one of these POSs and they could do low key Western Union, and they don't have to handle the Bitcoin. Maybe they literally just send it to a family member who's also running a shop in San Salvador, and somebody can go to that shop and then can get the cash back. And then the two merchants charge a fee, a few percent either side of it, but it's still cheaper than Western Union.
Yeah.
Like, we
I'm
need
sure
more
there
of
are
that.
some people already doing that. It's just not across the board. And you know, in a lot of these poorer countries, just the fact they've got access to the dollar is a huge boon. But it's like understanding Bitcoin is one step beyond. And Bitcoin's not mature enough yet to be a currency. You know, its narrative is still very much digital gold, which is about the stage that it's in. Obviously, it's been designed to be a currency, but it needs to be more widely adopted before it can actually fulfill that potential. And the infrastructure needs to be easier. And someone like David Bailey needs to be able to spend his Bitcoin, or whoever it was we were talking about earlier, who was struggling to actually use it, you know. So Bitcoin has a long way to go. It's not quite ready to be a currency, but absolutely, you know, for those who are smart enough, as a remittance, it's definitely got its uses.
I feel like it's always chicken and egg, because it's like you want it to be used as money, but in order to be used as money, it has to be already used as money almost. You know, like this is why I would
But we're
quite,
getting there.
we're
We're
getting there,
getting there. It's
yeah.
just really slow. And so, you know, everyone's still focused on the price without, you know, forgetting the fact that this is one of the reasons why it exists. It's about the fact that, you know, if your government is suddenly disrupted and you're evicted from your country, you can actually leave with all your wealth in a little with 12 words in your head. You know, that's the usefulness of it, but thank God many of us are not in a situation where we need to use it for that.
That's a
So,
very good point. So, I mean, yeah, like sometimes we forget that it is also like a plan B when the shit hits
mhm.
the fan, when currencies collapse, when the AI bubble pops and the markets collapse and money's worth nothing. Then we know, you know, we got the Bitcoin stuff. We can opt out and use that, and it kind of works it works well enough, you know, and it's more stable than
Exactly.
these collapsing fiat currencies.
Exactly. It might have collapsed in terms of its dollar value, but you know, if it's literally the only thing anyone is left to transact with. So yeah. So
Well, and
that's
this is not
that's
a
why it's
that's
worth
not a
being
good
protected.
narrative for our $1 million conference. And
Well,
and it's
which is why
interesting
they don't talk
because
about it. Yeah.
they had an artist at the conference, and he was doing a live painting over the 3 days. And it's really fun because I got into Bitcoin because I think compared to like conspiracy theory and other things, this was a positive industry. We're presenting an affirmative case here. We have things that we're going to do that help people. And this painting, of course, had to be about the Capitol, and there was a riot, and they were throwing Molotov cocktails, and there was fire and chaos and all these things. And he painted it live, and it was amazing. It's an accomplishment. But it's just such a bummer that we seem to have lost this positive vision. And part of this positive vision, and there's not a lot of good ways to say this, and there's probably all kinds of wrong things with this, but it's a bit of the Western people bringing this electronic currency to the poor people of the developing world. And that's not acceptable thing to say or whatever, but that wasn't present at the conference. The conference, like you guys are saying, is digital gold, it's investors, it's mining, it's how we're going to make money and extract profit off of these things, which is fine. There has to be that. That's part of our success. But in my head, and when I walk around there, and why I'm disappointed, and why other people might not be disappointed, and other people are pushing back on these, negative conference narratives, is it does seem like we didn't make like an army of Andreas Antonopoulos Jedi Knights, right? We went with the short and easy way, the dark side, you could make $1 million and whatever, and all this. We didn't go for what I think would be a lot more harder, a lot more difficult. Like you guys said, that shop in San Salvador, sending money to the El Salvador expat community in the United States. That's so small. Like, that's not going to get us $1 million. That's not going to get on the big screen in Las Vegas. Whereas these other ideas, invest your digital gold, taking all of these family offices who apparently invest millions and millions of dollars for rich people, and getting them to invest in Bitcoin. I think that's where the effort is being put. And that's why when you go to this conference, and even if they do have, like Ben said, they had an open source area, they had a lot of people. I've seen a lot of people who met good friends and got to connect with their audience and stuff like that. So they had success at this conference. So there's different layers to, if it's wrong here or wrong there. But I feel at the core, it was more about selling and money than it is about community and these small people. But again, that's where the money is. Like, they did the right thing for the thing that they're building.
An army of Jedi and Andreas Antonopoulos are wonderful.
To be fair, I think there
quote.
probably is an army of Andreas Antonopoulos, thanks to Andreas Antonopoulos. It's just that they're not the ones who are invited to speak at these conferences. They didn't invite me to speak at this conference. I'd have given them a different perspective, but so those people exist. It's just that that's where they want the focus to be, because that's what makes Eric Trump 7 million,
90 million.
or 90 million, while he's losing 500 million for his investors. So it's just the focus is inappropriate. But at the same time, if everyone wants their number to go up, then that's the people you need to invest, rather than the little El Salvadorian shopkeeper. So
well, and I do think that Andreas and the people that work for him and stuff did try to set up an Andreas Antonopoulos Jedi Academy. And I think that my friend Lamar tried to set up the Black Bitcoin Billionaires, an African-American Jedi Academy for Bitcoiners. And I think they were successful, but I don't think that they got the support that Eric Trump got. I don't think that they made $30 million and are now distributing and having huge resources to sell and to forward these ideas. And part of it, we want to say, support to David Bailey, Nakamoto, and this thing. Like Ben says, they have the open source stage. They've helped out Ben. But the other part of it, and we know this from our truth, it can't be all about helping people. It can't be all about open source and technology. It's, at least for now, and I don't know why and all those things, why the world is this way, but it has to be about making money. It has to be about this giant thing. It has to be in the big, expensive conference hotel. It can't be in a cheaper place that we could afford to stay in, things like that. It just kind of has to be. And I don't know why. A lot of these other computer things, watching Microsoft, watching Apple for all these years, these giant conferences, I always wanted to go. Same kind of thing, not really welcome. Because I'm not a lead. I'm just a technology guy trying to read about the next computer and maybe talk with the guys that built it or whatever. But Ben, go ahead, more on this.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that I guess that I think one of my problems with all these grifters on Bitcoin making vast, eye-watering amounts of money, often at the expense of other people, just carrying the Bitcoin. And the reason that Bitcoin and its brand has value is because of the thing which we're trying to pursue, which is this, pseudo-anonymous, digitally native value transfer, which you can do without trusted third parties. That's the reason it has value. It's all that work which went into building the thing which gives it value, and then these folks come along, they piggyback off the back of it, and they make eye-watering amounts of money, and then start to spin them a narrative that it's just this digital gold and blah blah blah. It's digital gold. You should just hold it, but obviously through my investment fund or treasury company, not yourself. That'd be a terrible idea. Don't do that.
Yes, and anyone that sends it around or used it as money is a sucker. You should have known. And yeah, when we got those hoodies for the homeless and they had all those Bitcoin, we could have helped a lot more people if we just held it longer. But that's always going to be true. That's always going to be a problem. It's funny, but it's almost like they should have an alarm on the stage, and 10 minutes of every hour they should say, okay, stop talking about this. Let's talk about what Bitcoin's really about. And then they all just kind of repeat from a card, and they're like, helping other people, having money that can't be stopped, all these kind of just basic things. And they're like, in addition to making us all this money, it's also going to help all these normal people and the small people. And at least, we hope so. We hope that still happens. But I think we talked way too much. I think Ben wanted to do a short show, so we did a really long one, messing up everybody's schedule. So we're almost out of time. Victoria, do you have a prediction or a story of the week? What's going on with you? Go ahead.
My prediction of the week is that Thomas is about to set up a museum of Bitcoin with all his merch from the Las Vegas Bitcoin conference.
Oh, I wish I'd bid on the art. For some reason, I got tired of bidding on art and winning art. And there was a nice one that looked like a typewriter. And it had like if you do not understand Bitcoin, I don't have time to explain it to you, written on it. And I thought it was so cool and I wanted it. But then it was already too much. And I actually decided, I was like, I'm going to get a typewriter instead. I'm going to get a real typewriter instead of a painting of a typewriter, because that's the cost. But yeah, it would be cool to have a museum of Bitcoin stuff. They have one in Nashville. David Bailey, far more financed than your Mad Bitcoins here, seems to have these kind of things. So I hope to tour his museum, see his cool stuff. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're hosting the conference in a warehouse that's owned by Bitcoin Magazine, so on and so forth, because that's what I would do if I was them. But yeah, it was a cool conference. They had lots of cool merch, and I was glad to get it. Ben, Ark, prediction or story of the week? Go ahead.
It was kind of reminding me of do you remember those original Bitcoin socks? Like if you speak to any Bitcoiners who've been around for a decent chunk of time, at some point they spent like 100 Bitcoin or whatever it was to buy those goofy socks back in the day, and now they just hate themselves for it. So
well, and those were those alpaca socks. Those were at least like that. The funny story about that, and I'd love to see a documentary and interview with them. Somebody, if I can plant that seed, because I don't know anything about them, but I think those alpaca socks guys held onto their Bitcoin and became really loaded. And like you said, I only have stories. Christopher Franco, who actually reached out to me on Twitter, wants to interview me, talked to him years ago, and he said he bought the socks. They disintegrated. They fell apart. They were not good socks. So in addition to losing potentially hundreds of Bitcoin on socks, they also, rumors, I don't know for sure, but the rumors said they weren't good. But go ahead, Ben.
Isn't that painful? Well, I'm sure you'll be kicking yourself in 10 years from now when we're at $600 billion a coin, and you spent it all on merch crap. Crappy socks which fall apart. Fast fashion Bitcoin socks. My story of the week, I've just been working like usual stuff, developing, working on different projects. We updated the SAS, we did some other things, but I think the most impactful thing this week really was, I mentioned it before, was the speech by King Charles there. Now, I'm no royalist, but he smashed that one out of the park. And I think the world kind of needed it. It almost felt like the world was all nutty and crazy and unhinged. And then the headmaster stepped in and said, look, this all lasts, it transcends just a few years. We're talking hundreds of years. And in that, it was just, for anyone who didn't watch the speech, it was to Congress. And then he had standing ovations from Democrats, but then also Republicans. The whole House stood up and applauded. And for them, it looked like it was like a relief. Like they could show they wanted sanity on both sides of the aisle, around NATO and Ukraine, and he managed to like slip in all these things like the environment, looking after the environment, the plight of the Ukrainians. The importance of something like NATO in a way which like he had a free pass, and actually it made Trump look better, which was the incredible as a political move. Like somehow like Trump's approval went up off the back of it. I just thought it was I think it'll go down in history as one of the most important speeches, and hopefully the speech which averted like the Third World War, because it could do like the points he made and the way it was delivered. Like there was lots of jokes, and then obviously he kept referring back to time. So like he talked about his mom, who'd obviously she'd been a queen for 13 presidents, and I think it just kind of put it all into perspective. Like it's everything doesn't have to happen all at once right now today. This is kind of the long game. We want stability. We want prosperity. We don't want to screw you don't want to screw the environment. And he just did it in such a great way. I think it was just the most powerful speech. And like I said, I'm no royalist, but it almost like for me like it validates all of that. The fact that you can whip out, when the president's fallen out with the prime minister of the UK and everyone's bickering, that you can just pull this old, like wise tough out, and then have him do this like charming British aristocratic speech with all these jokes, and quoting Charles Dickens and Oscar Wilde, and the Americans lap it up, they love it. But then also, it was kind of hard hitting, like he was saying controversial stuff as being hosted by the Trump presidency. I think it was a very important speech, and hopefully, I hope that it's going to turn the tide. Things feel better. It's sunny, it's warm, it's summertime. Things feel better. Hopefully there's going to be some, they're going to reach some agreement in Iran, and then, this the Gaza thing will calm down. Everything else will I don't know, maybe things will get better. Maybe this is a turning point. It felt very important historically to me, and hopefully it'll go down as one of the world's most important speeches. Well done, old Charlie boy.
Well, I've only seen clips, but Ben's inspired me. I want to check out the rest of the speech. And it's amazing, like you say, to think of a time after this government, and to think of the Queen living through 13 presidents. And it seems like this one's never going to end. But maybe it ends. Maybe there's a midterm election. Maybe there's a new government. Maybe things change. And it's also to think about, of course, England with hundreds of years of history to our 250 that we're celebrating this year.
As the king said, he said in his speech, he was like, the US have 250 years of history, or as we would, no, the Declaration of Independence was written 250 years ago, but as we would say, it was the other day. So it was like, and then he also spoke. So this was good because obviously there's been something of a divide between the US and the UK, and he spoke about the Americans kind of carrying on some of the concepts which were first founded in Britain, such as Magna Carta. Yeah, it was good. It just kind of contextualized it all, and why it's kind of important that there's a relationship there, and then why just sort of general prosperity and looking after the environment is important. So good. You should watch it. Everyone should watch it. It's a great speech.
I can't find it right here, but I'm trying to think of that poem that was something about the feet of the statue, and no one even remembers who the king was, and the giant statues there. There is so much more history. And then we think of, and it's interesting to see this current regime try to put its mark on history with the arch and the ballroom and the changes to the Trump Kennedy Center or the Trump Peace Center or these kind of things. They think they're going to be so permanent. And in the same way, the Nazis were so permanent and they built those huge cement buildings, the fascist architecture, and we still have the buildings. They took the symbols down. They took the banners down. The buildings are still there, but I don't think that they have the power and the respect and the 1,000-year Reich that they thought they'd have. So it's interesting to see this system as well as the Lenin, Putin, other systems where the dictator thought they'd live forever. Also worth noting the new Banksy that's been unleashed in England, which has a man with a flag covering his face, blowing away. I don't have the image right here, but imagine, it's a flag, like, so it's patriotism blinding a person, I think is the obvious first reading. But yeah, that does seem to be what's going on now. So we're all going to have to check out Ben's speech. The only other thing I'd say is, again, just a second shout out to Martin Kuchar from BTC Prague. I met him again at the conference. I saw him in Manchester. The conference is June 11th through 13th. I don't think I'm going to be able to make it, but if you can, check out BTC Prague in Prague. I think it's going to be an incredible show. Martin is a great Bitcoiner and made a really cool speech at the Manchester convention. And just shout out to him and all of his crew. I wish I could be there.
And one more point. So at BTC Prague, on the business day at BTC Prague, where you go and you speak to all the annoying companies who you can steal all the swag from, in the evening, the official after party is become originally we felt a little bit naughty doing it because it wasn't like a sort of provided by the conference, but actually it worked out. They didn't have anything on that evening. But in that evening, it's going to be the 600 billion party. So we've spoken about it on the show before that the final fiat denomination of Bitcoin is 600 billion USD for one Bitcoin. That's the price prediction. Bitcoin could hit 600 billion USD. Will in fact hit it. It's not a cult. First thing I'm going to say, it's not a cult, but there's a party on that evening, and we've got a huge venue.
Bread will be $1 trillion.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you need to keep the Bitcoin. But there's a party. We've got a huge venue. We're going to have some of the best acts in Bitcoin are going to be performing there. Root Soul, Roger 9000. So we're going to have some great music. Going to have some great beer. We're going to be doing the payments for it in LM Bits, and we're also going to be sponsoring the event too. But the 600 billion party, it's not been, I probably shouldn't have said anything about it because I don't think it's been officially launched, but it'll be worth going to BTC Prague just to go to that party. And everyone who comes, even though it's not a cult, gets to join the cult of 600 billion. So make sure you attend.
Well, very cool. And again, this is not paid. We're telling you because we think it's cool. Check out BTC Prague at BTC Prague on Twitter, June 11th through 13th in Prague, in Czech Republic, or they're calling it Czechia now. Definitely not Czechoslovakia, but very cool BTC Prague. And thanks to everybody for joining us today. It was a long show. Give us a thumbs up down below. And until next time, bye-bye.